What if the stories you've been told to fear are actually the only maps capable of guiding you out of the labyrinth of your own silence? And the most dangerous thing in the room isn't the killer, but the truth that emerges when women finally stop reading between the lines and start speaking them aloud. In the Dead Girls Book Club, Zia Rayyan delivers a psychological thriller that transforms the true crime obsession trope into a searing exploration of narrative reclamation, proving that in cultures saturated with female victimhood, the radical act is not solving the murder, but refusing to let it define the living. This isn't merely another book club mystery with wine and whispers. It's a claustrophobic, emotionally precise descent into collective trauma, where every discussed plot twist mirrors a buried confession. Consent is negotiated through shared vulnerability rather than assumed intimacy, and justice requires dismantling the very stories that have commodified women's pain for entertainment. From the first page-turn narration, listeners are immersed in a space where fiction becomes forensic tool, and sisterhood is the only reliable alibi. Perfect for fans of literary suspense and stories where female rage is channeled into intellectual insurgency, this audiobook serves up relentless atmospheric dread, unflinching thematic depth, and protagonists whose journey from passive consumers to sovereign authors resonates with anyone who's ever felt erased by the narratives meant to represent them. When archivist Alara Vance joins an exclusive book club ostensibly dedicated to classic crime novels, she expects escapist discussion, not to discover each selected text corresponds to an unsolved local disappearance, and the members' interpretations encode confessions they can't yet voice. But as Alara navigates coded annotations and fractured trust among the group, she realizes this gathering isn't about literature, it's about testimony. Rayyan masterfully avoids reducing the club to gimmick or Alara to detective archetype. Instead, she crafts a narrative where reading becomes ritual, where consent is renegotiated through interpretive boundaries rather than social obligation, and where liberation requires honoring the dead without being consumed by their ghosts. The audiobook narration amplifies this emotional precision, capturing Alara's academic detachment fracturing into fierce clarity, while secondary voices shift subtly between performative analysis and hidden brief, making every literary debate feel like both performance and probe. You don't just hear the mystery unfold, you feel the seismic shift of women learning that some truths can only be spoken through the safety of borrowed words. What elevates the Dead Girls Book Club beyond typical psychological thrillers is its nuanced portrayal of true crime consumption as embodied reckoning rather than voyeuristic escapism. Alara isn't merely solving cold cases, she's confronting how her profession taught her to treat women's lives as archival material rather than lived experience, challenging the notion that objectivity requires emotional distance. Her relationships evolve through acts of radical reciprocity, sharing silences during discussions that bypass intellectual posturing, establishing reading protocols that protect both textual integrity and emotional safety, and defending each member's right to reinterpret against cultures that mistake canon for truth. Supporting characters add vital texture, members whose expertise masks personal loss, librarians whose curation reflects institutional bias, even the books themselves, rendered as living archives whose marginalia absorb decades of unprocessed witness. Every interaction reinforces the novel's core truth. In economies built on female erasure, attention is insurgency, and presence is the only true resolution. Even the thriller mechanics serve thematic depth, with unreliable narrators mirroring systemic gaslighting, and plot holes becoming metaphors for silent voices. For audiobook listeners, this production is an immersive sensory descent into intellectual intimacy. The narrator embodies Alara and her fellow readers with remarkable distinction. Alara's voice carries measured curiosity laced with dawning urgency, while secondary voices span disciplines and temperaments, making each member's contribution distinct yet harmonized. Sound design enhances atmosphere without overwhelming immersion. Distant page turns marking emotional pivots, rain against library windows during vulnerable confessions, the hushed rustle of bookmarks sinking with breath during moments of revelation, all anchor psychological stakes in tangible reality. Pacing mirrors the rhythm of close reading, deliberate during textual analysis and reflection, then surging with urgency as external pressures collide with internal awakenings. Whether you're commuting through urban landscapes or sitting in twilight solitude, the audiobook creates a portable sanctuary where slowness feels sacred and connection feels lifeline. It's storytelling as embodied validation, transforming passive listening into active participation in a journey where healing isn't about closing the case, but about rewriting the story. Ultimately, the Dead Girls Book Club redefines psychological suspense by centering female epistemology within literary frameworks. It satisfies genre cravings for shocking reveals and relentless pacing, while delivering substantive commentary on narrative violence, communal memory, and the radical act of trusting women's interpretations when systems demand compliance. No prior series knowledge is needed. It stands confidently as a complete emotional odyssey. If you've ever wondered whether safety can coexist with truth, or if true strength requires breaking the stories that claim to contain you, this audiobook will affirm that sometimes the most powerful act is refusing to read the ending they wrote for you. Press play, open the book, and prepare to believe that even in landscapes shaped by silence, voices still find ways to return. Your next favorite thriller isn't waiting in external villains, it's waiting in the brave, trembling choice to speak your truth aloud.